This is a reply to Jeremy Noslen, who posted a reply to one of my early videos entitled, "Why Does God Not Show Himself?" I've long intended to reply to this post, however, due to work constraints and travel, I've been limited on time, and I wanted to be sure to respond at some point. His post begins this way. I've been thinking a lot about this, being a Christian in European postmodern culture. Here are a few of my thoughts on it, for what it's worth. I tend to be a logical-based person, and if I had not become a Christian, I would find myself in very similar shoes as yours. This admission does not mean that my faith is illogical, or not based on a firm foundation. It is just that many times you cannot see things clearly on the other side of truth. I think that is where faith comes in. Okay, to get to the point, why does God not show himself in all his power, thereby overwhelming the work with the truth of his existence and forcing every knee to bow to him, which would be the result? The real question is, how would the vast majority of the world feel if this did happen? It would be very similar to communism. Get on board or what? Your choices would be limited. Say, "Thank you, God, for showing me you're real," and then serve him. Obey him in a fear-driven obedience that is void of life. Or continue in the most vile form of rebellion and anger while living in misery, knowing your rebellion will bring you ultimate death and hell. Have you ever heard the expression, "Ignorance is bliss"? Close quote. I could go on, but I believe you get the idea. It's a rather lengthy post, so the video in question and the post that it is attached to is listed in the comment section. The problem I have with the statement, "Ignorance is bliss," is that ignorance can get people killed. Misinformation or lack of knowledge can lead to very costly errors in judgment. If a commanding officer on a battlefield makes a decision based on faulty information, it can lead to the loss of his or her entire unit, or it can cause the death of non-combatants. Ignorance is not something to be glorified. If anything, we should seek to educate ourselves so that we do not remain ignorant. As far as how the rest of the world would feel, I for one would be happier finally having an answer to the question, is there a God, and if so, which one is it? I don't see how it is benign for a deity to demand my worship and threaten me with eternal torture while choosing not to reveal its existence. If anything, it's torture, because you have to search amongst countless religious and non-religious deities and hope you are lucky enough to pick the right one. However, just because it is a God doesn't mean that I am obligated to worship it. I still retain the ability to choose whether I want to or not, regardless of the power of that particular deity. If you are incorrect in your assumption that your interpretation of the biblical God exists, then there are a slew of other potential so-called deities who could be. What if it turns out that Darth Vader ends up being God? Will he be a God you deem worthy of worship?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Would Darth Vader be a God worthy of your love or your contempt? The idea of believing in a God strictly on faith makes zero sense to me. It makes more sense to me to treat anything that isn't supported with evidence as though it doesn't exist. You do the same with other religions. I'm just taking it one extra step. Jeremy later writes, God has given us enough to be able to know about him and believe in him, but not so much as to take away our choice of belief. I think no man will come to believe in God unless God brings him to that point. Well, in terms of knowing a deity exists, I disagree. I don't think it's given us enough evidence to know whether it exists or not at all, much less which one it would be. Otherwise, there would only be one religion as opposed to the many belief systems we currently have. That's not a good thing if you want to be recognized as the one and only deity. Nonetheless, fundamentally, you just made my argument for me. And As you said, no man will come to believe in God unless God brings him to that point, which is basically saying no evidence, no acceptance. Relying on faith is basically saying, I am guessing I'm right, while ignoring the evidence that states anything to the contrary. And if God is, as you say, coming to man, saving him, and dying for him, then where is he? And why not make his presence truly known? Why leave millions of people from multiple faiths, and even non-believers, why leave them in ignorance? How are you gaining followers using that rationale? Especially if you really want to save souls. Any good marketing executive will tell you that's not going to help. If people don't know about your product and they don't know it's a good product, they're not going to go get it. So, again, it comes back down to evidence of some sort that would dispel all other gods and prove that one exists in the first place. With that being said, Jeremy, while I disagree with your perspectives, I thank you for taking time to reply. I hope you eventually find the answers you're looking for and wish you the best in your pursuit of truth. And as always, to everybody, thanks for watching.